Tonight, Israel defends its military operation to rescue hostages as Hamas claims hundreds were killed, including some hostages, and a catastrophic landslide that cut off a critical highway. We do begin with the horrific scenes in Gaza after the air and ground operation to rescue 4 Israeli hostages. Buildings leveled, craters in the streets. Hamas insists hundreds of Palestinians were killed, hundreds more wounded, and now claims some hostages were killed, including an American. Israel blames Hamas, saying its soldiers were attacked from all sides. The Netanyahu government now faces new pressure as protesters take to the streets, and a key member of the war cabinet resigns. Also tonight, Donald Trump in Las Vegas campaigning in sweltering heat, his first major rally since his felony conviction. State of emergency, the moment a landslide took out a key highway linking Idaho and Wyoming. New reporting on what may have caused it and the staggering economic impact on summer tourism. Gunfire erupts at a rooftop party in Wisconsin, 10 people hurt. The police chief calls it a miracle no one's dead. Authorities along the Florida Panhandle are on high alert, citing a notable presence of sharks after 3 serious attacks in the past few days. Chaos at a rodeo after a bull jumps a fence and runs through the crowd. Multiple injuries are reported as victims scramble to get out of the way. Caitlin Clark speaks out after being left off the U.S. Olympic team, insisting this gives her something to work for, and what she's saying about those who did make the team. And defying the odds, from living in a shelter to the valedictorian of his high school.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday. I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight, Israel is defending its daring daytime hostage rescue mission amid claims of a rising civilian death toll from Hamas, with hostages among those killed. The rescued hostages, 1 woman and 3 men, were taken on October 7th. Israel estimates about 80 more people who were kidnapped that day are still alive. Images from Saturday's raid taken by the IDF show soldiers moving in by helicopter and racing the hostages to safety. But on the ground in central Gaza, a much different story. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry said at least 274 people were killed, dozens of them children. Israel says there were fewer than 100 casualties. We do have team reporting tonight. MaryAlice Parks is standing by from the White House, but Marcus Moore leads us off from Tel Aviv.
Tonight, a day after that air and ground raid that freed 4 Israeli hostages, the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry indicating the operation took a massive human toll, saying at least 274 people were killed, including dozens of children, and 698 others wounded. The IDF disputing those figures, saying the number of casualties was fewer than 100. The raid in central Gaza leveling entire buildings, burnt out cars littering the streets, a crater left in the middle of this neighborhood. This man says during the operation, shrapnel struck his son in the head while sitting on his mother's lap, and he's now in critical condition, and that his siblings and 2 nieces were killed. ABC's Martha Raddatz today pressing the IDF on whether it took the potential loss of Palestinian lives into account.
Tell me why those airstrikes were necessary, why buildings were destroyed.
The forces came under fire from a 360-degree threat. The tragedy of civilians being caught up in this is precisely because of how Hamas is battling us on the battleground. Our responsibility, our first and foremost responsibility, is to rescue the hostages.
The White House today saying it has concerns about the operation, but repeating its position that Israel has a right to pursue Hamas.
We are concerned about every loss of life, including in this operation. We see individual instances that we have spoken out about, where we would like to see them operate differently, where we would like them to be more precise.
Pressure mounting further today on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz announcing his party will leave the government over Netanyahu's handling of the war and calling on the Prime Minister to hold elections. Saturday's joyous scenes of hostages reuniting with their families, giving way to continued demonstrations against Netanyahu in the streets. Israel estimating 80 living hostages remain in Gaza. Protesters telling us that the raid has not changed their view of his government.
Do you believe that the Prime Minister will bring the rest of the hostages home?
He is not interested in what's happening to the hostages. He's only interested in his political future.
A sharp characterization there. Marcus Moore joins us now from Tel Aviv. Marcus, Secretary of State Antony Blinken is scheduled to travel to the region this week for ceasefire negotiations. Tell us what we can expect.
Well, that's right, Lindsay. The secretary is hoping to move the needle on that ceasefire proposal detailed by President Biden more than a week ago. It includes a hostage release and prisoner swap, but the U.S. says it's waiting for a response from Hamas. But tonight, it is unclear what the impact of yesterday's raid will have on the negotiations, Lindsay.
All right, Marcus Moore, thank you. Hamas is claiming that Israeli raid killed 3 other hostages, including 1 American. The IDF and the White House have both said that's not true. Let's bring in ABC's White House correspondent MaryAlice Parks. MaryAlice, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Lindsay, one White House official told me they have not seen anything to support these claims from Hamas that Israeli hostages were killed by Israelis, nor anything to support the idea that an Israeli-American hostage might have been killed. But they also acknowledge that that is always a possibility. And they said that it has been nearly impossible in real time to know exactly where these hostages are and their conditions. Now, the White House will continue to gather intelligence about how exactly this operation on Saturday unfolded. And I am told they are bracing for the very real possibility that many of the remaining hostages might not still be alive. Now, ABC's Martha Raddatz pushed the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan about whether the civilian toll in that operation was acceptable. He finally admitted that they were concerned, but again, really pushed everyone involved to bring up and accept that ceasefire deal that is on the table, Lindsay.
MaryAlice, our thanks to you. Sources tell ABC News that former President Trump will have his probation interview tomorrow at Mar-a-Lago. Tonight, for the first time since his hush money conviction, Trump held a large-scale political event in a crucial swing state. ABC senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott reports in from Las Vegas.
It's not too hot out here, right?
Tonight at Donald Trump's first major rally since a jury of his peers convicted him on 34 counts of falsifying business records.
A disgrace.
The former president once again bashing the indictments that have upended his campaign.
I got indicted again and again and again. I was never indicted. In a period of this little tiny period of time, I was like a ping pong ball.
Trump's still facing 3 other criminal indictments, escalating his attacks on prosecutors, using profanity to lash out at special counsel Jack Smith.
He's a deranged, dumb guy. He's a dumb.
Trump supporters in line waiting hours in scorching Las Vegas heat as high as 99 degrees. Some wearing shirts bluntly reading, quote, "I'm voting for the convicted felon."
Has the conviction hardened your support for Trump?
Oh, yeah. The former president also lambasting President Biden's recent immigration executive action that strictly limits the asylum process. The border now temporarily closed to migrants crossing illegally.
It's weak. It's ineffective.
Trump even mocking Biden reading a teleprompter.
He wouldn't even say anything because he's incapable.
5 months out from the election, some Nevada voters tell us they aren't sold on either candidate.
It's kind of like a two-way risk assessment. Who's going to damage our democracy and our way of life worse, and whose damage is going to be harder to clean up.
Rachel Scott joins us now from Las Vegas. Rachel, what are you learning about a pre-sentencing interview for the former president?
Lindsay, we are told by sources that that pre-sentencing interview is scheduled for tomorrow. We are also told that the former president will sit for it virtually from his Mar-a-Lago estate alongside his lead attorney, Todd Blanche. All of this required by the court before the former president is sentenced on July 11th, Lindsay.
Rachel Scott for us. Thanks so much. Overseas, early results from European parliamentary elections are shaking the continent. Just before we came on the air, French President Emmanuel Macron dissolved the National Assembly and called for snap elections. ABC's Lama Hassan joins us now from London. Explain why these elections are so important.
Yeah, Lindsay, the European Union elections are a big deal. The world's second largest elections, with almost 400 million people eligible to vote, giving leaders a more comprehensive idea about the politics of the continent and where they are headed. And the polls so far show big wins for the far right. Tonight, French President Emmanuel Macron making a shock announcement, taking a huge political risk by dissolving parliament and calling for new legislative elections after his party suffered a crushing defeat in the European Union elections. The far-right party of Marine Le Pen making huge gains in an historic win for her party. And it's not just France. Austria and Germany are also seeing a shift to the right. Lindsay.
The hard right no longer on the political fringes there, Lama. Thank you. Ukraine is claiming that it hit an ultra-modern Russian warplane inside of Russia. Satellite images put out by Ukraine show the plane on the ground more than 350 miles from the border of Ukraine and Russia. A satellite image taken later shows black spots in the area where the plane had been. It's the first time Ukraine has hit this type of Russian aircraft. Back here at home, a catastrophic landslide has destroyed part of a major highway in the Teton Mountains. These images show the moment that road came crashing down. It's a vital commuter link between small towns in the area and the tourist destination of Jackson. Here's ABC News meteorologist Somara Theodore.
Tonight, this dramatic new video of a massive chunk of road collapsing along the Teton Pass in Wyoming following an enormous mudslide. This stretch of mountain pass, a critical link between eastern Idaho to the popular tourist destination of Jackson, Wyoming, now closed indefinitely. Officials say the trouble started Thursday after cracks appeared across both lanes on the road's surface. While there's been no official cause for the landslide, it's believed melting snow was a contributing factor. The route, Wyoming State Highway 22, reopened after crews did a patch job, but another mudslide a few miles away forced it to close again. Fortunately, the area was still closed when the section of the road collapsed Saturday. Governor Mark Gordon of Wyoming declaring a state of emergency, saying geologists and engineers would develop a long-term solution to rebuild the roadway. Even a short closure could be very costly to this region, which in 2022 took in about $1.7 billion in tourism money.